Here we are together again, another episode of Coach to Influence, where I bring to the podcast great coaches, sales leaders that are doing the right things right. And I can't be more thrilled to correct a massive wrong with my friend Matt Fruithandler. This is his first podcast, and if you know Matt, you follow his content, you would be as shocked as I was. Although we didn't connect as professionals on LinkedIn, he started liking dad jokes. He threw in some raunchy dad jokes into our DMs. I put it out to the public. I got banned. He brought me back. Here we are. Matt, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to join us today.
I'm really happy to be here. It's always funny how people meet, but it's the journey that we go on is what really makes us and defines us.
So considering we met over jokes, before you introduce yourself to the audience and share your background and obviously why you're here, let's hear the joke.
I'm going to start off with a classic. Two muffins are sitting in the oven. The first one says to the other one, "Gosh, it's hot in here." The second one panics and says, "Oh, muffin!"
So for those of you that don't know Matt has run SDR teams, large and small, after a career of working in the trenches and showing that he can do the work to not only be a successful SDR, an AE, but an SDR and AE leader. What impresses me about Matt and what we'll dig into shortly is the mountain practice that he's put into effect. But before we dig into that, Matt, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? Maybe we could just dump right into the mountain and why it's such a great model to use for SDRs, young, old, and everything in between.
Sales teams too. But hi, I'm Matt. I have a funny last name. But yes, Matt Fruithandler. I've been leading SDR teams for about 5 years now. Been in some sort of sales role for about 16 years, which is never a number that's going to get any easier to say. Anywho, part of the reason I got into leadership is when I was as a rep, as an individual contributor, when I was on my path to hitting my quota, I spent my extra time bringing everyone else up because I had way more fun in an environment where everybody was successful than when one person was just streaming far ahead and kind of letting everyone eat his dust.
How did you do that? Got to cut you right off. So I hear all the time about people that led by example. So before you had any authority to share, to be a leader, how were you leading by example?
Everything I did, I documented, and it was always shareable. Hey, granted, there are some things that there's intangibles that make somebody a good salesperson, and you can always think, but there's also strategy, and those strategies, especially to the new hires, I wanted them to be successful. I was loud and proud on the phones, but then when I had my extra time, I sat next to their desk, whether I was their official mentor or not, and sat with them like, "Hey, what's going on? What are you working on? Where can I help?" And giving them suggestions from there. And doing that professionally is just fulfilling. Watching people have that aha moment, which I enjoy as an IC, don't get me wrong, but watching somebody repeat that and then bring their own aha moment to you that you get to learn from them is just that cycle that keeps me wanting to continue growing in this role.
From what I know of the mountain, it seems like that's a great opportunity to dig into it. Let's talk about what made you think of the mountain, how you've applied it, and the value that it brings to sales teams, large and small.
The mountain, as I started my sales career, one of the things that I quickly learned is that everyone needs individual coaching. There's kind of the general things you can do with everyone, but when you're actually working with individuals and you want them to be successful, they each have their own learning style, where they are at in their experience. But in my head, I always look for a good metaphor and I look for a way to think about it. And I thought about a time I was on a bachelor party, which is an interesting way to think about a sales training. But this bachelor party was in Vermont. It was for my best friend from college. He's a chiropractor. We brought his other two friends from chiropractic school. These guys were athletic, and I was a retail office worker in a mall. And one of the guys, we're going to go climb Mount Mansfield, and we're going to do this trail. It's an easy trail. I'm like, I'm a little out of shape. Let's do it. It was called the Hellbrook Trail. And
This doesn't sound like fun at all.
If I didn't enjoy being on the mountain, I might not have thought about it. But one of the things during that time, we spent talking about kind of different skill levels and things you need to learn and do, like the things you needed to eat to make sure your electrolytes are up, how to get over certain obstacles, pace yourself the right way. They were really helpful for that. And then There was also one of the guys that had not climbed a lot. He just needed more kind of broad coaching from one of the main guys, and his name was Christian, and he really knew what he was doing and took the time to make sure that everyone was ready. Anything from the basics of getting everything packed and cooking what you need to know to have your pack versus actually being out there and just kind of basic from there. And as we went along, the trail has its own specific markers to kind of gauge your success. It isn't just about going from start to finish. The journey is part of the before the destination is really important. And I thought about this, and everyone knows what a mountain is. Everyone has been on some sort of trail where they have markers. There's no reason why this can't be a coaching method. This kind of led me into thinking about it. Everyone has their own mountain to climb. The goal is to get to the top of the mountain. Mountains aren't naturally designed to make it an easy way to get to the top. They're not just going to have an easy path that you just walk straight. You have to take a trail that is suited for your skill level. The trail markers are on these trails to determine the way to go. The trail markers are these micro goals that make the major goal possible. It is the accumulation of the experience. And then you have to trust and follow the path to make it to the peak. Because if you try to go off your own, you may find yourself stuck, or you may find a cliff, and you may slip. And after you get to that goal, get to that peak, there's always another mountain to climb.
So you're the trail guide.
We are the trail guides. We are the Sherpas. We are leading them to the top.
Can you speak for a moment why it's so important? And you mentioned this, everybody has their own trail.
It's a good point. And it's because, let's say you and I, the way we think about things and our experience is not going to be the same. So from just a basic learning standpoint, you have visual learners, you have hands-on learners, you have auditory learners. That is just a very basic difference between everybody and the way they handle it, how they grow from there. But also, what works for you, Joe, may not work for me. You could be an advanced climber and have all the gear and have done this before, and they're climbing up very steep trails, can do this, what takes beginners hours and minutes in there. Versus, let's say I'm a beginner here. I need to have a very defined way of doing that. I need to be able to see the next marker from the first marker. I have to know that from there, and that you have to differentiate. Granted, it's all a mountain. There's still basic things that they need to know. You have to put one foot in front of the other. You have to drink your water and things to that effect. So there are some commonalities between each one, but the path that you take to the top is going to be different from somebody else.
I appreciate that. I don't think a lot of sales leaders out there, regardless of the size of the team or the level of experience, ever really appreciate that fine distinction. Because to me, that's what separates training and coaching. Coaching is different strokes for different folks. Everybody's going to have their own journey. And I mean, even nailed on something as simple as how they learn. You know, back in the day when I made mistakes with early sales teams, I never looked at it from that perspective. So it's nice to see the generation of young sellers are getting that kind of coaching. But you had mentioned something about trail markers, and I'd love for you to dig into that just a little bit further to help the reps out there appreciate that their trail is different than the guy sitting next to them. They may have to take more steps in certain areas and not in others. And I'd love for you to expound upon that.
If you've ever looked at a map on a mountain or a state park or that has some elevation, they have their trails. The trails have different colors. Beginner trail might be green, a more advanced trail might be red, things like that. But all of these have the same goal, that they are your path to the top. The path that you take is dependent on your skills and experience. So as a beginner, you need a straightforward, clearly defined track with many markers so you don't fall off. Now, these are basics. These are like, it'd be as simple as like KPIs and things to that effect. It could be, but they are just, this week we're going to go and grow and we're going to scale what we do, and it's going to be defined. Advanced climbers, they're going to be more abstract and have different ideas in that aspect. You decide on what kind of training you do, because now you're an example and a leader. You're going to help mentor people. There's a basic kind of mentor thing, but how you mentor each person is going to be different. Or it could be the path to promotion. You can't control what everyone else is going to do, but say, hey, this is the kind of basic ways that you need to go from the checklist of things. Like you need to hit this area, this blanking on the word, of course, as we get put under pressure. But there's a moment in time that you will hit on the path, but you're not going to be able to see it from where you start. And lastly, when you don't follow these tracks and you fall off the mountain. Now, sometimes you'll have to have a question with people is like, can you follow a trail, and is climbing mountain right for you?
What's a great way to expose whether or not you have somebody on your team that's going to, have a fulfilling career, be able to fulfill the expectations that are out there for them. This certainly saves them from annoyances like pips or just getting that tap on the shoulder that they're no longer wanted and being shocked by it. So it's nice to see the definition out there because you hit on something very poignant in that everybody's trail is going to be different. But you also help drive home, and I really appreciated when I saw this for the first time, the accountability on both ends. Maybe we should talk about that because I know a lot of sellers always talk to this is what I'm accountable for, but you don't hear that from as many leaders. So as you're working with the next group that you're going to bring up the mountain, you've got first timers, third timers, people that treat it as a hobby, people that are professional climbers. Let's talk to that a bit.
So the practice of it is important. When you are working with people to have this mountain method, you need to define what the top of the mountain looks like. You also have to define where on the mountain you're starting, the experience that you have, or how far up you are, and what you consider the top of the mountain. And then the basics of it is creating the first trail marker. What is the first thing they need to do to kind of show that we're willing to go to the next steps and climb up? Now, as any good old park ranger will tell you, the trail markers need to be marked and documented, and there has to be someone guiding your climbers. It's usually going to be you, or could be a mentorship on there, but there's a Sherpa along the way. Two, you have to have climbers be ready to be encouraged as much to document their progress and the milestones along the way. Because while the journey is great, when you climb a mountain, the peak isn't the only thing that you get to see on there. You need to understand your progress and how you've grown and take full advantage of that. Now, I will say in the practice of this, you're hearing me kind of being specifically vague, and it's kind of important that I am that way. It is that because
Explain that. Explain that a little bit because some people don't appreciate why somebody might be explicitly vague.
so being vague, one, to trying to somebody wanting to take on this method, you have to understand that using this method, you have your own mountain to make it work. Which, good old circular there. But two, it's also how you want to structure and put it in. If you're using a program like Dextego that has AI coaches, they could be your guiding climbers along the way. Or is it an enablement team, or are you the only person guiding your team? So that kind of broad, vague methodology is needed to do this. Granted, I'm happy to go into more detail and to kind of give you more an exact way of it. But as I said, it's your kind of mountain to climb.
Let's talk about the flip side there of outside of missing trail markers. Are there hazard signs that you're looking for as you see progress?
I think what it comes down to is it's how you define those hard goals that go along with it. Yes, these are the trail markers along the way, but as the beginner, the many beginning ones that you have is that their activity is going to be important about the KPIs, like how many calls, emails, prospects added, how many deals they close, things to that effect, and how that's going to scale. But it's also the knowledge checks that they have too. Like you need to make sure that somebody understands what they are doing from a philosophical standpoint and also what their product means to their personas and who the personas are. I always separate this out too, is also how you handle rejection and objections. It's just part of the job in every step of the way. And the people who can break through these are also who are going to be successful, and how you practice along with them. All these things together kind of define what the path looks like, but also how you guide them along the path and make sure that they're going the right way. So when you're working with a beginner and as you have your action as a manager, you are walking with them on the trail. You are making the regular check-ins, making sure that we can use all the metaphors about making sure they're hydrated, making sure that they are eating right on there. They aren't just taking a big slice of cake and eating the middle and getting cramps. They are ready to go and taking the breaks as they need to recognize where they've come from there. Now, you could be talking to a more advanced person where they've already have a track record of success. They've already kind of climbed up the parts of the mountain. They have the gear, that they're ready to go. So now you need the parts that are going to make them be more successful for the next step, whether that's a different peak or getting ready for a different mountain. Like when I'm working with SDRs, part of those next steps in advanced, let's say hiking tactics is how they suggest and understand the targeting that they work with their AEs and the definition there, the way they mentor and work with their mentors. And that mentor is not just you. Now they're working with somebody that is an external factor, like a sales mentor if they want to be promoted, a CS mentor, or maybe a marketing mentor if they're going that way. But the real mark of somebody knowing what they're doing is, can they mentor other people to success as well? So as you're thinking about working with that advanced A player and having them get ready, yes, you're probably there on the path with them, but you're giving them goals of being more of an observer and seeing what they bring to you as well. Maybe there's new hazards on the road. Maybe they are suggesting they find a way to kind of make the path a little bit better for the next person. But these are what the advanced graders go. The last part of this is, unfortunately, there's not everyone is ready to climb a mountain. There's a certain level of physicality or mentality that was required to it. If you're working with a struggler, somebody maybe they showed some initial promise, but they fell off. You have to understand what's going on here. Is it just a very simple activity thing? Are they dehydrated and therefore they just can't keep putting their heads over their feet one foot over the other? Like, are they not hitting their minimum activity goals? Do they just kind of walk forward and not think about where they're going, like the knowledge that of the path and moving out from there? Are they not prepared? Did they say they have everything ready and then don't bring all the gear that they need? Are they not prepared for one-on-ones or they're meeting with your account executives? uh, you need to kind of sit them down and and do an analysis with them. Let them own it, because in sales, as much as we want to say it, a lot of what we're trying to do is to get the prospect to kind of have that aha moment and figure it out on their own. And if they can't, then you have to have that tough question, that tough moment of being like, is mountain climbing for you? And that's okay if it's not. Maybe they're swimmers. Maybe they just want to kind of lounge. Either way, it's a matter of being flexible on it, having defined goals, and understanding everyone's a little bit different, and you're going to have to respond to them a little bit differently.
Yeah, I love that you constantly speak about checking in and checking in. I'm curious how you've been able to help. Because for the young bloods just coming into an organization, coaching is mandatory, or at least I've always operated under that premise. You don't know enough yet to go out and deal with every week on your own. There are going to be coaching on how to hit that next trail marker. But how are you helping the more senior hands that may be on that border of confidence and arrogance where they don't feel like coaching is the thing for them at this stage in their career?
You know, when I was thinking about it, and I kind of go back to how was inspired to do this, Christian never would only walk in front of behind me if he knew I was comfortable enough going forward. So as a leader, you're either walking next to them or walking in front of them, being the example, showing things how to done, but also innovating with them and then letting them tackle certain problems on their own with observation. So when somebody's doing things well, one, you need to point it out. Somebody's hit a new milestone, take a break and let them check out the vista. Uh, but when fall off a little bit, let give them a gentle ribbing. Like somebody goes off the path and maybe slips a little, or maybe they're a little dehydrated. Like as a good mountain climbing guide, you are making sure that your people are healthy and going from there. Sometimes they have to take breaks and stop burning themselves out. But it's a matter of giving them time, giving them the room to actually be successful, not just with you showing them everything, being the example, reminding them to take breaks, and also calling them out if something that they're doing is really either going to be a danger to them or career.
Now, just to help alleviate the concerns of a lot of the pretenders out there that think Matt doesn't know what he's talking about, would you care to share how many orgs you've implemented this with and how many times you've seen success? Because I know it's more than just a handful.
It's been a couple different orgs. I've usually used this more of a background framework and also as a way to kind of explain the basics of it. So what this way we've done this is like, for instance, if you want people to own a little bit more of the process, you have to give them time to it. So I do bi-weekly two weekly one-on-ones with the team. One where I'm running it, and then the second one where they are actually running it. They bring whatever they need to go from there. Most recently, I got to bring this to unfortunate my short tenure at DHI Group, and we saw immediate growth and success among all team members. So it was really great to watch that in progress. And you watch when you use this methodology, as I mentioned earlier, everyone kind of knows what a mountain is and knows the climate. Maybe they've seen a movie, maybe they are a mountain climber, maybe they're a hiker. It's the metaphors. This is one of those unique metaphors that tends to work for everybody, which is really nice. Shout out to my former reps. If you haven't, I can give you some names of some great people if you're looking to hire.
Let's throw out some names of great sellers that you have had the privilege and honor of coaching and building out. Let's call them out.
Well, it's one of those things there's a lot of names out there. I will forget names.
So people are getting forgotten. It's not on purpose, but feel free to send a scathing DM to Matt should you be left out of this prestigious list. Let's go, Matt.
Well, most recently, we've got Thomas, Destiny, Emma, Donnie, and Jacob, my former team over at DHI. Over at Alti Sales, I love working with all of you guys. Tito's a great coach, guys, if you haven't connected with him, and same with Max. But as far as reps go, Austin, you and I probably spent the most amount of time together. So big shout out to you there. Optimizely, Andrew, Patricia, there's Milena, there's so many more of you. And I've been a couple minutes.
Well, when you post about this in a few weeks, you'll have the chance to remember everybody, tag them on how awesome they are. And I'm sure it's because they made the same investment in you that you were willing to make in them. Because that always seems to be a universal trait of great sellers. They are aware of and have the aha moment, or the first aha moment they have is that you are looking out for their best interest. You can have an amazing impact on their career and that you're there to guide them to the peak. So the fact that you can speak of so many people and probably have another half dozen that you can't right now truly speaks volumes to the coach that you are. For those sales leaders out there that are looking for a sales leader, Matt's the guy, Matt. So let's have some sales fun. What is one sales buzzword you wish would disappear forever?
It's a string of words. I'm going to say typing together. Cold calling is dead.
Okay. Talk to it. Why do you think we should disappear together? Besides the fact that great coaches like you are prepping sellers to get on the phone.
Because it hasn't died for a very long time. It's really just a buzzword usually used to sell somebody else's product.
Fair
or
point.
to tell somebody not to get called. But cold calling has not died. And even everything that's tried to kill it has only created more innovative ways to do the cold calling.
Let's see if this will get you rankled. Biggest sales pet peeve.
A biggest sales pet peeve. It's not setting an agenda. And that social contract up front is so important. It really sets the tone across the way, whether it's just a simple discovery call as an SDR, whether it's the closing call that you're going to do as an AE. That simple agenda up front keeps everyone focused. It allows you to go back to it. But it's just that setting expectations that really makes a difference between somebody who's going to fail or succeed.
Okay. AI in sales. Lifesaver, threat, or just hype?
I'm going to use something different. I'm going to call it an infant. It is an infant in its way in its world. There's some really interesting things that it does, but it is really at its beginning of what it's capable of. It ain't going to replace salespeople because until it can tell better puns than you and I or make actual people laugh. But there's a lot of really interesting things that are happening with it, and it's just going to keep getting better.
We won't even mention Dextego, but we just did. Okay. As a seller, most unusual place you've taken a sales call from?
Back when I was at AppCard, we had just finished a happy hour and we were on the way back to the office to go pick up our stuff. And a lead came in on the website. And while enjoying the post effects of the happy hour and a little horse from karaoke, was on the phone closing a deal.
What's your go-to pump-up song for either selling yourself or getting the team psyched up?
That's a great question. There's a lot. The pump-up song for the team really depends on the team. Get to know your team and get to know their music because your music isn't necessarily what's going to get them pumped up.
So what's your pump-up song?
My pump-up is a little different. I use comedy when I'm doing cold calls. Because if I'm
It's
laughing...
like stand-up comedy, or are you calling me for one-liners?
Stand-up comedy usually. You'll have that in your headphone and it just... Because that genuine smile, laugh, people can hear it. So I might as well have a little bit of a good time while I go about doing things.
Perspective, who's your go-to comic?
I like Titus. I like Mitch Hedberg, speaking of one-liners, and Brian Regan. Brian Regan's a good, safe comic, by the way, for everybody. He's pretty clean about the way he approaches things.
Matt Birbiglia, too.
Yeah.
He'll drop an F-bomb every now and then, but if you can stay with the story, sometimes they're funny. It's just it goes on for an hour.
Like a topic moment, too. He's not... It also helps with that. But Birbiglia can get some pretty racy topics sometimes.
Yeah, good point. Okay, so last question. Who would play you in the movie about your sales career?
Who will play me? That is... I'm going to pick everyone's favorite nerd icon. It'll be Henry Cavill.
Okay.
Because I would like to be replaced by a jacked, nerdy guy who's quite handsome.
Oh, come on, you fit all those bills already.
I'm sure, but not his way.
Yeah, well, not many can. Matt, this has been, you and I talk all the time. I could do this all week. I've been leading teams for 30 years. Matt and I speak twice a month, and there has not been a conversation yet where I haven't walked out of there with some value. So if you're struggling as a seller and don't have the guide, don't be afraid to go up to your manager and ask for that guidance. Or at the very least, give Matt a follow, slide into his DM, Tell him you need some help with helping a manager to set up some trail markers, and he'll do what he can to set you up for success. Matt, thank you again. Thanks for doing all the right things the right way. And I'm going to miss talking to you twice a month when you're back in the saddle running a team. So I'll take these while I can. Thanks again, my friend.
Until
We'll
next
see
time.
everybody soon for the next episode of Coach to Influence.